Last week you would have seen me make a start on this, which is my highly secure bike store for a couple of e-bikes, where you would have seen me cut steel, do lots of welding and start boxing the thing in with riveted sheet metal. So this week I've got to finish the roof, the floor, the locking system and do something with this outside black tin look before my wife rejects it. So yes, this is the second and final part of my extremely secure bike store build. If you haven't seen the first part, go and see that first. I'll put a link up here. Essentially, I've got to the point where the structure is complete. I've started cladding it, but I've still got quite a lot of work to do. I've got the roof and I've got the floor. I've got the lock-in system and I've got all the timber around the outside. So I'm starting this morning with sorting out the lock-in system. And I'm going to be using two outside locks like these. So these essentially are gate locks that are designed to be out in all weathers, and I've used these successfully in the past, and they've got quite a long throw with the bolt here, and they've got a really solid bolt, so quite like these. So my intention is to mount two of these, one top and one bottom of the main door, to keep that secure. And then I've worked out a way of, if that main door is locked, then the second door is locked and the top is locked. But you'll see that a little bit later. But come and have a look at this, because fixing this to the door isn't quite as straightforward as it looks. If you can imagine that this is the top of the main door, I'm going to mount a lock at the top and a lock at the bottom. So to mount this, I really need to use these holes in this sort of mounting plate. So if I put it in this position, the throw is just too long. It's just too long a throw. I've only got 25mm, an inch to play with. And here I've got about 40 or 50mm. So I have to mount it down a little bit. And then obviously these holes on this right-hand side just fall into mid-air. So I thought of maybe making a little frame, something like this, that's all welded up and can be welded nice and strong to the main frame, that this lock can now sit in. That means that all of the holes, whichever way round I put it and wherever I put it, all of these holes have got a good fix in and should actually work. And this is going to poke through a little bit more than I wanted, but this is the smallest one I can get. So all of that is going to be mounted, or this lock is going to be mounted on the back side of this frame, if that makes sense. And I think that gives me a secure fixing. And all it does is it means I've got another little bit of steel that you'll see from the top and the bottom. But if it's all painted up right and it's the right size to miss all of the timber and that, it should look okay. So what I need to do now is to make two of these, weld them all up, grind them all down, make sure they're all nicely rounded off, and then fix them to the front, and then see if I can get these blimmin' things fixed. As I've said before, I would urge any DIYer to have a go at welding, even with a cheap parkside welder like I've got. Clamp-tastic. For the hinges and these locks, I'm using tech screws, which essentially drill their own hole and end up giving a really strong fix in. I'll put an Amazon link in the description below for the ones I'm using here. So with the doors and the locks complete, I'm turning my attention to the roof. And because, as I said right at the beginning, I think the roof's just going to be too heavy to lift up, I've actually split it in two, not 50-50, but maybe 40-60. So there's a fixed section there that will never move. I've got three hinges which aren't actually connected yet. And this front section, or front sort of 2/3-ish, is going to pivot up, probably up to about that sort of angle. That means that I can actually walk in, I can get to the back wall and to the side walls, and also help get the bikes in. So I think that is going to work rather than the whole roof going up. I've got half a chance of it working at least. So now I have to sort out the hinges, do a lot more welding, and then hopefully I can stick on top of the sheet metal that I've got on the top here some roofing felt. But before that, I weld some tabs onto the doors, the reason for which will become evident in a minute, but it's all to do with security. So just let me explain quickly my locking system here, because originally I had it in my mind that I would close the roof section and lock it off. I'd close the first door and lock it off, and then the second door I would lock with a key. But I've come up with a bit of a clever idea. You see these plates here, I've just cut from plate steel. Then I've cut notches out of them so I could then re-weld them together to make a bit of a U shape that I can weld on here. And the reason for that is that as these doors close, they fit into those pockets. And as I close both doors and then lock it off, now the roof is completely locked. You can't open the roof and with the doors closed. So I think that, it's pretty clever. To pin the roofing felt down securely, I really need timber rather than steel, so I screw treated battens to the steel frame all the way around the perimeter so I can fix to that. Then I cut the roofing felt to size and stick it to the sheet metal with plenty of bitumen based roof felt adhesive. With the roof complete, I move on to the floor, where I'm using 18mm OSB screwed down to the steel frame with some more Tech screws. It's at this point that I always seem to find out that the structure you've already built isn't quite square, and a certain amount of trimming with a jigsaw is required to make it fit. To beautify this big, black, ugly metal box, I'm going to use strips of Western Red Cedar. These are 45mm wide by 20mm thick, and I'm going to be fixing them vertically with a 10mm gap between each one. So I trim all the ends first and then use a stop block to cut a load to exactly the right length, and then tidy up the cuts with a sanding pad. Each one has a slightly different colour tone to it, and while I'm cutting these, they give off a really strong cedar smell, which I'm just not used to here in the workshop. To fix them to the steel sheet, all I'm going to do is to screw them from behind using stainless steel screws, top, middle and bottom. So I mark out a bit of a story stick type masking tape that I can use on each fixing line, so I know exactly where to drill for each fixing. And before anyone asks how I get the exact uniform separation for each door and side to suit a number of 45mm cedar strips and a 10mm gap in between and all around, well, The answer is I designed the steel box around the size of these strips initially, just like an architect designs a house around the size of a single brick. The trickiest bit to the fixing is working either side of the door at the same time, holding the cedar strip in the right place on one side while juggling an impact driver and a screw on the other. But once you've mastered it, then all you need to do is to repeat it accurately about another 50 times. What is wrong with this masking tape? So that's it, 100% complete. And I've never worked with red cedar before, but I must say, it's really nice to work with and very forgiving. But especially when you coat it with that UV protection, it really brings out the colour of the wood. How long that's going to last, I don't know, and I don't know how good this Osmo oil is. But you've got to use something, so I went with this, and maybe I'll do a bit of an update in a year or two's time to see how it's got on. And I'm really pleased the way it's come out, especially the locking system, which means that I can open the two doors, and then if I want to, I can open the roof, but it's all locked up with just two keys. And it's just really convenient to have everything in the same place for cycling, your bikes, your helmets, all the other bits and pieces, and to have it wired in so I can charge them as and when I want to, which I need to do now because I've got quite a long bike ride tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you next time.